Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you're listening to episode 41 of TurfCast podcast with me, Joe Redmond. And those of you watching on the VODCAST will already have noticed, but this is the bit where I usually introduce my co-host, or panellist as I like to call him. I'm the only host, Simon Townley. But unfortunately, Simon's not with us this week. He couldn't make it to the podcast. Unfortunately, it was due to unforeseen circumstances. It was quite a bit of a last minute thing. That's why I haven't had a chance to get anybody else involved. You'll know, obviously, long time listeners of the podcast will know that previously, when Simon's been unavailable, I've got a couple of my other friends on in Steph and Robbie. But this was a last minute thing, so I've not had any chance to be able to get anybody else involved. So because of that, obviously, it is going to be just me. If that's not your vibe, then feel free to turn off. Hopefully we'll have Simon back next week. And if I don't have Simon back next week, if he is still preoccupied, then I'm sure I'll sort something out. So that's fine. If a one-person talking podcast isn't for you, I totally understand. No hard feelings. Come back next week. However, like I said, I will hopefully try and get something sorted for next week, but I'm pretty confident Simon will be back anyway. But if not, we will try and get more of you guys involved. I wanted to give you guys more of a voice anyway, because we've got the platform which some people would like to have, so they can get their opinions across. It's something I've wanted to do, but we're holding off until next season because we have certain plans that we're going to start next season and things like that. So instead of waiting until next season, if Simon can't come on the podcast next week, then we will just bring some plans forward for next season, which will involve you guys getting involved and you having your say, basically. So you essentially will get your chance to get one of your opinions out on TurfCast, and then we'll debate it, or I'll debate it if Simon's not here. Or we'll put it out to the listeners as well and clip it up and get some opinions on the podcast as well. But first of all, before I get started, I do want to mention, of course, the sponsors. If you haven't already, please go and download the Pitch Sport app. Obviously, not a lot going on in terms of football or any sport. Obviously, slowly coming back, as you're all aware. Sorry about that. I'll just turn my phone off, Simon, and they'll give me a right grill in there. But yeah, so what we're saying, yeah, Pitch Sport. Not a lot going on at the minute in terms of football, but the Pitch Sport guys are still managing to get plenty of content out. At the minute, they're simming on Football Manager. I think that's the right word, isn't it? The Euros, obviously this week the Euros should have started. Obviously that's quite upsetting to think about, isn't it? I was thinking about it earlier today as well. We should have been down at the Euros. We should have been in London or wherever. I think the England groups game were in London, weren't they, at Wembley? But yeah, that should have started this week. But this week the guys at Pitch Sport are simming the entire tournament, so they're trying to still get content out there. And like I said, there's not a lot of football on at the minute, but they're still managing to get content out there. And of course, I upload a video to the app every week as well. It's called a Fan Time Question, where I speak to you guys, ask your opinion, then you give your responses, and then we read them out on the podcast as well. We have got one this week. I haven't read some out for a couple of weeks, simply because obviously not a lot of people have been interacting as much, which is fine. Again, obviously a lot of people aren't really watching the football and paying much attention to it because they're focusing on other things, and again, that's fine. But this week, thankfully, we have got a good debate and we had quite a few responses as well on the question, but we'll get into that later on. Another thing I want to mention before I get started as well is the quiz. I know I mention it every week, but it is part of what we do now. It's something that we do every week, as I say. And this week was actually a really, really good quiz. There was somebody leading the quiz, because we have some of them, some people play not just on Facebook, but on something called My Quiz as well, and people can have their scores live and things like that. And I can see the live league table of where everyone is, and a certain person, their name escapes me, was winning pretty much from the end of the first round all the way until the last question. And then on the last question, someone else picked this person to win the quiz right at the last second. It was absolute limbs. It's the most excitement I've had since lockdown. Absolutely incredible it was. So please, if you haven't already, please come and give us a try. Every Sunday on Facebook Live, 7 p.m. Test your knowledge about Burnley Football Club. So of course, it is a Burnley Football Club podcast. It's a Burnley Football Club page. So all the questions are obviously Burnley Football Club related. We have picture rounds and things like that, and obviously every round is different. I choose different rounds in each game. The only one that we have every week is the picture round, which is simply who is this, and I will put a picture up of a past Burnley player, and you have to tell me who it is. If you think that sounds like your thing and you think you can do really, really well at something like that, then please come and join us. We are going to start introducing prizes. As I mentioned on the podcast last week, we are looking for a sponsor on the quiz. So if you do know anyone that might be interested, please tell them to get in touch with the page or to email turfcastpodcast@gmail.com, and then we can sort out some analytics and things like that and show them what we can do for them. But if you haven't already, please go and check it out. It's part of the furniture now. We're going to be doing every week during lockdown or until I'm back at work, because I'm not yet. And then when I'm back at work, it might be every 2 weeks, might be every month. But yeah, I've said that on the podcast before, haven't I? Right, anyway, the news it brought today, Ashley Barnes looks like he won't be ready for the Manchester City game, which is on, June the 20th? So it's, 10 days away today, I believe. What date are we on now? Yeah, the 10th. So it's 10 days away from when we play Manchester City. And Ashley Barnes was speaking to a Brighton and Hove Albion podcast, believe it or not, called Footy Albion Me. Check them out on Twitter if you want, guys. I'm not sure why you would, to be fair. It's a Brighton one, not a Burnley one. This is where it's at. But he did speak to them. Obviously, he's a former Brighton player, obviously. But Ashley Barnes exclusively revealed to them in an interview that he will not be ready for Burnley's restart against Manchester City, but does hope to play some part before the end of the season, he told the podcast. Now, that, for me, that doesn't sound good. I think it's looking like it'll probably miss the rest of the season. I seem to remember this happening when Robbie Blake had the hernia operation, which is, of course, what Ashley Barnes has just had. He struggled to get back to full fitness for quite a while, and he came back too early. I seem to remember, and he wasn't really doing it. I seem to remember before Barnesy went away for his operation, he wasn't really firing all cylinders, was he? He wasn't really playing that well. Obviously, that it was the hernia that was holding him back. Now, I think he said on the podcast that the lockdown rehabilitation process hasn't gone as he'd expected, which to me would suggest there's been quite a few niggles along the way. Maybe he's picked up some more injuries around the area, maybe stretching it too much or whatever, I'm not sure. Or maybe he's tried to get back on the pitch, kick some footballs and torn something. Very, very slight, obviously. This is just, I've got no inside information, obviously. This is just guesswork, to be fair. But that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like he's been back on back in the rehabilitation, obviously speaking to the physios, having people go around to his house maybe. I'm not sure what the protocol would have been during coronavirus lockdown and things like that. But obviously it's not gone as he wanted, as he said. So I think for me that probably sounds like there's been some things that were unexpected. That the healing process hasn't gone. Maybe it's an infection or whatever. I'm not sure. But unfortunately, to me that doesn't look to me like that Barnes is going to really be back this season. I know if we've got to go off things that Dyche and the club have said in the past about people being back on the grass and things like, the usual cliches that Dyche comes out with. It tends to be like a long-winded process, doesn't it? So I think, yeah, Barnes. I think for me, we don't need to rush him back, do we? Like, look at the position that we're in the league: 39 points, 10th in the league. Just 1 point behind Arsenal in 9th and level on points with Crystal Palace. No one's talking about them in relegation troubles, and obviously no one's talking about us as well, because we are pretty much safe. I think we could probably lose every single game between now and the end of the season. Not that we will, but I'm saying we could, and we'd still survive. For me, I can't see the current bottom three getting up to 39 points, and some of the teams around there as well. So for me, yeah, fair enough. It hasn't gone exactly how you wanted, Barnesy. That's fine. It is a bit of a shitter because we do all like to see the shithouse playing. But Jay and Chris Wood were more than capable, and they were both playing absolutely fantastically before the lockdown. I think, to be honest, it was part of the reason why we were playing so well and why we're on such a good unbeaten run as well. Obviously, Jay scored the goal at Old Trafford, an absolute screamer, and Jay's done it against Chelsea as well. He scored an absolute screamer there, and he's been fantastic. I thought he was a little bit slow to start the season, if I'm being honest, but he wasn't really getting a run of games now because of Ashley's operation before the break. He got a good run of games, and Jay were fantastic. And I think Jay and Wood worked really, really, really well. And I think, if anything, there'll be a few people that'll say that's probably their preferred partnership now anyway. And Barnes is just going to be a bit of an impact sub from the bench, maybe trying to ruff a few feathers, when everyone's tired. But of course, we've also got Vids as well. He's done well in recent games since he's come on. Obviously, it took forever to get his chance, didn't it? And a lot of people were getting quite irate about it. But he's done really well since he's come back in, hasn't he? Of course he has. Since he's got the run in the side, of course he has. He got the absolute screamer against Southampton. Some people say it's their favourite goal of the season. For me, it was the J one against Manchester United. Sorry, we've been through that on a podcast before, me and Simon. But my point is that just shows what he's got in his locker, and yeah, it's taken him a while to get his chance, but he's got it now, and he's proven that. We can do it, and he can step into Barnes' shoes for me, or be an impact sub off the bench. I know we put the debate out on the podcast, on the social medias, last week or the week before. I can't remember. Like, who would your preferred top two be up front? And quite a few people were, of course, saying Jay and Wood. Obviously, we had the variety of all the people in there. But I know a few out there as well would like to see Vids and Jay up top as well. So maybe that's what some of you would like to go for as well. Let me know. Get in touch with the podcast on the social medias, and we'll go from there, hopefully. But speaking of injuries, we've had another injury this week, and Johan Berg Gudmundsson, he's injured again. Now, I can't remember the exact ins and outs of it. I'll just quickly get it up on screen if I can. Normally, this is where I use Simon and get Simon to start chatting to me, so it looks very seamless, and you can't tell that I'm searching for things, or at least that's the vibe that we're trying to create anyway. But Johan Berg Gudmundsson was injured again. I think it was late last week. He's pulled a muscle again. It just always seems to be the same sort of thing all the time, doesn't it? He always pulling a muscle. It seems like he is the new. Yeah, found it. There we go. It seems like he is the new Stephen Defoe. Unfortunately, now I know we had the debate on the podcast. Last time he pulled a muscle, which should have been late January, because he did it against Peterborough. Not Peterborough. Yeah, he did it against Peterborough in the cup, didn't he? Or did he? I think he came back against Peterborough actually, but then pulled it later that month. So obviously he got his first game back against Peterborough, if I remember rightly, and then obviously had the injury again later that month, and it just seems to be it seems to be the same with Johan all the time, like, doesn't it? Obviously, Burnley fans, before I go out there and put my neck on the line, obviously I do want to say that I love Johan. Of course I do. Every Burnley fan does. When he's on the ball, he is quality, and I think he's incredibly underrated by most fans as well. To be fair, just look at the goal he scored on the opening day of the season against Southampton. Absolutely brilliant. Cut inside, bent it for a corner. The guy's class, and he causes a lot of problems on the wings when he is fit, but he's just not fit enough, unfortunately. And I think we're at that stage now where I know I've already used him before as an example, but he is playing just as much, or if not less. I haven't got the actual stats up in front of me that Defoe did in his last season, because again, I don't think he's going to play much of a part now this season. Again, it'll be a case of keeping him away, because there's no real need to risk him. So I can't see him playing much again this season, which means he won't have played since January. And I think he didn't play much at the start of the season before he picked up his first injury. So again, I think we're at that stage now where Defoe, where I personally think it's time to let go. I think as much as I love him, and I would be a little bit disappointed to see him leave, in the same sense, he's just not playing enough. And if it's the physicalities of the Premier League that are too much for him, that's fine. Defoe was obviously the same, but it's obviously getting a bit too much for his body now. Maybe he does need a rest. He's had the lockdown rest. Maybe he just needs a longer rest now until the start of next season. So maybe giving the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully he can come back next season and play well. But I think for me, it's time to start thinking about offloading him. I know a few fans agree with me. I did put a post up on the socials saying that he was injured when I got the news. And Reece got in touch saying, didn't Dash also say that J-Rod and Brady are both feeling good but taking it easy? And obviously Brady probably is. And Brady's always taking it easy, isn't he? Unfortunately, he's another one of them that always seems to be injured. Now, obviously, he had a massive injury, to be fair, which can take a long time to come back from, whereas Johan's different. He keeps picking up little niggling muscle injuries. So that's the difference in that one. Mark Beckett got in touch and said JBG has a big problem. He has thighs like cheese strings. Yeah, that's essentially it, isn't it, mate? Unfortunately, it does. To which at UTC would reply to that. It's annoying because he's so good when fully fit. And then obviously the debate for that went into when is the key word. Now, I want to talk about a fan interaction debate that we had on the podcast on the 5th of Jan. On the socials on the 5th of January 2020. Now, this must have been what I'm referring to earlier. So it must have been against Peterborough, his injury, where he came back, and then I think we put out on the socials, love Johan, but is it time to start thinking about offloading him? He's injured so much. He's just come back. He plays 45 minutes and he's done again. Is it another wasted wage? Give us your thoughts. Now, like I said, we've already had that debate on the podcast, but I think it's now time to move that debate on again, because we're in this position again with him. Unfortunately, he is out injured again by the look of it, and it's looking like, for me, like I said, I don't think he'll be playing much this season. But I've reopened this fan debate. Chris got in touch. Whatever we do, we need a winger. He says, I'd shift him on as he's not worth £30,000 a week, being injured so much, and we're losing for nothing next summer anyway. Richard Hardcastle said he's been very disappointing, has great ability when fit, but he's so injury prone. Rick Craven said hopefully this extra period of rest/light training might give him a chance. Yeah, I'd agree with that, Rich. That's exactly what I've just said. I'd give him another season, that's fair enough. Transfer market will be all over the place, and we will declare ourselves king. Yeah, fair enough. I haven't really considered the impact that COVID-19 will have on the coronavirus when thinking about Johan there. Howard Thompson says, get shut, he's made of glass. Now, Kieran Dall, at Kieran Dall makes a good point. He said he played 64 games over the last 2 seasons, which isn't bad at all, just being unlucky this season. Yeah, that's fair enough. Obviously, he must have played a lot more last season. Fresh start next season, see how he goes, and he's too good to give up on too early. Someone else made the point, it must have been on Facebook because it's not there, saying that in the season that we finished 7th, or season 7, as I like to call it, he played pretty much every game. Then he went to the Euros, I think it was the Euros, wasn't it? Yeah, he went to the Euros that summer, or the World Cup, sorry. He went to the World Cup that summer, played for Iceland at the World Cup, and then came back and had pretty much 2 weeks off before being called back into training for Burnley, because obviously that's a year when we're in the Europa League. So maybe it does just need a bit of rest, to be fair. And maybe I am being a little bit too harsh, but I just feel that we're in this position now so much with Johan. It's just every time you think you're getting somewhere with him, it's just another injury. And it's always the same sort of injuries as well. It's a pulled muscle all the time, which to me would suggest as one of the points just made that I have read out, that it does have a serious issue. Now this week, I know I've already mentioned that we do the fan time video, and we'll get into the responses for the latest one later in the podcast. But this week I've just sent my question off to the guys early today, a couple of hours ago, and that is the question this week. Is it time to let Johan Berg Gudmundsson go because he's injured so much? And as somebody has just mentioned, we are paying so much money per week just to have him missing out. But do you think we should keep him because he's got a good ability and we should give him a chance to come back next week? Let me know on the Pitch Sports app, please, because that's where you can go over there, watch the video where I ask a question and then respond on there, and then we'll read your answers out on the podcast next week. Let's talk about The Athletic, which is a must for all football fans and has loads of brilliant Burnley content. The Athletic brings you the best coverage of football, combat sports, NFL, NBA and loads more. A world-class team of football writers, including Andy Jones, who covers the Clarets, and it's completely ad-free with no ads and no annoying pop-ups. If you're not signed up to The Athletic yet, fans of TurfCast can now get 50% off the annual subscription price and a 7-day free trial. To get the deal, head to theathletic.co.uk/TurfCast. Right, moving on. I know we mentioned it on the podcast last week and the podcast before, but we are trying to raise money for Pendleside Hospice alongside Joe Skinner, who's done some charity boxing matches live on his Facebook page. He's raised over £7,000, which is an incredible amount of money. Hats off to you, Joe, for that. But we're trying to get Joe just a little bit further. We're not trying to take any credit off Joe at all. We're just trying to help him out. We've got the Burnley Football Club platform. Or we've got a Burnley Football Club platform, should I say. So we're trying to sell something on Joe's behalf, or raffle it off, should I say, on Joe's behalf, which is a bit of Burnley memorabilia. They are some little cigarette cards, like a unique piece of Burnley memorabilia. It really, really is. I put some pictures on the socials. I'll put them out again tomorrow. So if you don't already follow us, please do just search TurfCast Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube. I'll put the pictures on Twitter and Facebook tomorrow. I'll put Joe's link out there again, and if you want to buy a raffle ticket, please do, because it's just £2. So come on, lads, it's just £2. I'll be honest with you, we've not had as much uptake on this as we would have liked. We would have liked a little bit more. As I'm saying, I'm trying to get Joe over the 8,000 mark. I think he's raised like 7,800 and something so far, which, as I say, is an incredible amount of money. That could have gone up by now, to be fair. I've not checked it for a few days. People are always donating through other avenues. But obviously, we have quite a few hundred listeners to the podcast and the VODCAST as well every week now. So if just 50% of you just gave £2, that's a lot of money. It will get him over that mark. Simon's kindly donated some money as well. I will be doing so as well. I was thinking of maybe matching everybody's donation, something like that, but we'll confirm the details of that later on. Yeah, you know what, I will put 50% of everything that is earned through TurfCast back into Joe's pocket. Well, not Joe's charity link, should I say, not his pocket. That's the wrong thing to say. But I will match it up to 50%. So whatever we make through these links and through the cigarette card raffles, I will personally put 50% of that money into the charity again. So I will wait and to see what we've got. So hopefully, boys, don't let me down, and girls, please come and purchase a raffle ticket. Like I said, it's on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page. When I'm saying I'll put it up tomorrow, to you that's today. I'll put it up on Thursday, not far behind the link for the podcast. I'll put it up mid-morning. So if you do want to buy a ticket and try and win a raffle, and if you just want to help and you're not that bothered about winning, that's fine as well. But Frank Casper has, former Burnley manager Frank Casper, has got in touch and said that he will sign his card on the frame as well. So you will get an incredibly unique piece of Burnley memorabilia. Nobody else will have that. Somebody else might have these cigarette cards, but they're not all going to be signed by the players, are they? So come on, it's your chance to get something that really, really is unique, and you'll be helping out Pendleside Hospice as well, which is at a time like now is obviously going to need all the help it can, and I know that a lot of people in and around the Burnley area are very, very fond of Pendleside Hospice for obvious reasons. It does a lot for a lot of families, and it has done a lot for a lot of families for a long, long time, and hopefully it will continue to do so for a long, long time as well. So please, if you haven't already, please, it's just £2. You can buy as many raffle tickets as you want. If you only want to buy one because you haven't got too much money spare, that's fair enough. But please come and help out. Right, now earlier in the podcast, I of course mentioned the Pitch Sport sponsorship, and part of that sponsorship is I record a video of myself every single week. I then send it to the guys at Pitch Sport, and they upload it onto their app for you, my listeners, or our listeners, to respond to and get your opinions across on a question that I've asked. Now, last week, I asked you via the Pitch Sport app how you think the restart will affect Burnley. Now, of course, we were in fantastic form before the lockdown. Obviously, hadn't lost since the defeat at Stamford Bridge in January, and picked up some really good results along the way as well. We weren't just playing the lesser teams. Of course, we won at Old Trafford. We drew on I think it was the last game, weren't it, at home to Spurs. So, we picked up some really, really, really good results. And we're playing really, really well. We'd really turned a corner. Obviously, a lot of Burnley fans were quite worried on New Year's Day that maybe we were facing the trapdoor. Personally, I wasn't. But I know a few Burnley fans were. But it just goes to show how well we've been doing recently, because we have turned that corner. And now no one thinks that we're going to be getting relegated anytime soon. So I asked how you think the restart will affect Burnley, because like I said, we're in great form before it, but obviously, as I say a lot of times on the podcast, momentum is a big thing in football. Thanks to Phil Brown for that quote, by the way. I've never actually told you guys why I love that quote so much. I think on the first ever interview I did, I interviewed back in the days when I was a young budding sports journalist. I interviewed Phil Brown, former Preston manager. I think at the time he was at Southampton. They just played Accrington Stanley, and I think they'd won there, or they picked up a good result anyway, so it might have been a last minute equaliser if I remember rightly. I can't remember anyway. But I remember speaking to him and asking him about, obviously, you're hoping this result will get you some momentum, and he turned around and he just said that to me. Momentum's a massive thing in football, son. So then I've said that ever since. But anyway, as I say, momentum's a big thing in football, but of course, the momentum of our good run will have been stopped now, I think it's fair to say. And you look at the teams down there as well, like Villa and Brighton, Bournemouth, who are in terrible form. They were all looking like they were going to go down. West Ham weren't in great form as well. But now that they get that chance of a restart, that the losing every week, where losing becomes a habit, that kind of could have stopped, could it? I don't know. So that's why I asked you the questions. We had a couple of responses. Lindo gets back in touch and said, we will beat Man City. They will be scared to contact versus Burnley. Ashley Barnes needs to keep his lips away from other lips, or definite red post-COVID. Yeah, but obviously, no kissing, Ashley Barnes, I think. Yeah, that'll probably be a new rule, won't it? No shithouse kisses. Unfortunately, you can't do that anymore, Ashley. But obviously, Ashley's not playing. But obviously, Lindo's very confident that we're going to go to Manchester City and win. I do not share that confidence, I'll be fair to say. But hopefully we do. Obviously, I think it's one of them though, is it? Is it a good time to play him? A few people will be saying like, it's probably a good time to play Man City, because they're not going to be, they're not going to be up for it. They're not going to be, they don't have the momentum that they do. They might take a while to get back into the rhythm after the restart. But obviously we fight all these issues as well, don't we? So is it a good time? It might be, it might not. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. And 193, another regular poster on Fan Time says, I think we will get back to winning ways. Fully fit squad should get us back to winning ways, and there's a reply to that one as well. So a fully fit squad, the full squad should be fit. Unfortunately not. worn 93 because, of course, we've since found out that Barnes and JBG aren't fit. I can't wait for the season to start again. Of course, I think everyone will echo that sentiment. It has been an absolute age in football. It feels like, doesn't it? An absolute age, but hopefully we can, we can enjoy the football again soon, and we can Burnley get back to winning. Apologies if you see me ducking and diving all the time. I seem to have quite a lot of fruit flies in the kitchen. I'm not really sure why. I'm not really sure how to get rid of them. But another thing I do want to quickly just talk about is obviously football's coming back. Now, I'm not going to do my predictions for the Premier League at the end of the season. That was the original plan for the podcast before Simon couldn't make it. But I want to leave that till next week to either get one of you boys on, or girls, or maybe have a debate about it on socials, or get a few of you on where you have your say and things like that. And we'll do that way. But I do want to quickly talk about this neutral venue thing, because it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case anymore, does it? Obviously, it seems like now games are going to be played at teams' home grounds, which I think is the right thing to do. I believe it's the right thing to do. I think it'd be weird to see this bubble thing that we're going to do in the Midlands, where they have all the games in a World Cup style thing. However, I do think it's a little bit. I think places like Turf Moor, obviously, it's in a residential area, as are a lot of football grounds these days. Goodison is, Anfield is, but you see all the new ones. They tend to be built on the edge of motorways and near industrial estates and things like that, where they are miles away from anything. So I'm happy that they're going to do it. I'm happy that the games are going to be at the Turf. But I think we should just sort of like try and say to people, like, come on, let's not go down there. Like I said before, we have a platform. I think it's only fair that we try and do right on the platform. So what we are going to do is we're going to be doing watch-alongs. Me and Simon, hopefully Simon will be available by then. Obviously, when is it now? 10 days. It should be all right by then. He's just a little bit preoccupied, that's all. So what we're going to do is we're going to do live watch-alongs. So we had a few messages to the page this week. That's why I want to talk to you about it. Quilter, hopefully I pronounced your name right, but he got in touch, and I think Reese has asked before as well, asking if we'll be doing some watch-alongs, because of course we did the live FIFA watch-alongs, didn't we? So we're going to be doing watch-alongs. We're going to be watching the game, the Burnley game, on one screen. Of course, due to legal issues, we can't obviously actually show the game, but we will be filming us watching the game. Now, of course, I don't know if any of you has watched the Bundesliga, but it's been weird, hasn't it? I can't get used to it. I can't get used to watching a game with absolutely no sound whatsoever. So what we're thinking is, you can have the game on the telly, and you can have us watching it on the laptop next year, and hopefully we will provide that bit of atmosphere for you that we'll be missing. I know a few people, while watching the Bundesliga, have done some like sound effects and things like that. That's fine if you want to do that. That's fine. But me and Simon will be doing live watch along, so hopefully we can see there. We'll be doing them on YouTube, and I might do them on Facebook as well. Definitely 100% on YouTube. But I need to have a look at that Restream thing. Obviously, if there's any streamers out there, you'll know that Restream is an app where you can sort of like stream something to it, and it puts it out on all the social medias. I've never actually used it, if I'm being honest. So I just need to look, see if it is decent enough, and it is capable of doing what I want it to do. Now, unfortunately, that's pretty much it from us this week. Now, obviously you'll be aware by now, I've mentioned it a few times, Simon isn't here, and of course we would have liked to do a longer podcast, so apologies, it's only a short one, but of course I am on my own this week. Hopefully that isn't happening again next week, and even if I am on my own next week, as mentioned, I will try and get some of you boys on. Now, I'm happy to do things like put stuff out on social media to get people involved. But if any of the long-time listeners of the podcast want to get involved and have a chat with me, maybe if Simon's not available, we might even, like I said, it's something we've wanted to do for a while. I want to do a thing where we just call it "Get It Off Your Chest." If you've got an opinion, we've tried to do it before a little bit. I think Nathan, shout out Nathan if you're listening, got in touch and gave one of his opinions. Unfortunately, he was the only one that actually got in touch and actually gave us an opinion for us to discuss. But I think with football being away for so long and it coming back, I think a few of you might be a bit eager to try and get your opinion on there and hopefully get you on the TurfCast and have a chat with you all. But yeah, thank you for listening. If you don't already, please follow us on all the social medias. You've got Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and Instagram, especially YouTube, please. We're trying to build it up later on, and of course that's where the watch alongs will be 100%. I'll decide whether or not to do on Facebook. I might just put some clips on Facebook. I haven't decided yet. I should really stop thinking out loud and just sign off. But if you aren't already, please follow us on all social medias. Please, the quiz will be back this week at 7 p.m. on Sunday, as usual. And of course, I've mentioned the Joe Skinner. We're trying to raise money for Pendleside Hospice. If you've got a spare couple of quid, please help us out. It will be really, 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 really appreciated. So thank you, and we'll see you next week where hopefully things are back to normal. Bye.